What's going on, everybody? Chaseontwowheels here for another episode of WBR Garage with our CBR1000 Street Fighter behind me. Now, I'm not going to be in this episode. I was behind the camera filming, Brian working on it. You're probably asking yourself, Chase, why are you doing the intro? Brian just left. Seriously, I'm not going to tell you guys what happens in this episode, but we got to a point and we tried to do some things and Brian got very frustrated and left, and you'll see it in the episode. But as far as what happens in today's episode, gas tank gets installed, fluids get installed, the exhaust gets installed, a couple hoses get finalized, and we fill the bike with fluids and crank it up fully for the first time. It is a phenomenal episode. Unfortunately, the ending, not as happy as we kind of wanted it. So you guys buckle up. It's going to be a good one. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Also, if you guys want to win the motorcycles that we build here on WBR Garage, the only way to do that is that top link down below, Chaseontwowheels over on Patreon. Join us over on Patreon, little as $5 a month, and you guys can win these awesome motorcycles that we suffer through to build for you guys. But if you can't afford that, that's totally fine. All the episodes come here over on YouTube, but you could also get episodes a week early. So if you're watching this and you're like, I wonder what happens on the next episode, might be up over on Patreon. All right, guys, let's get into it. Let's cut to Brian and let's see what's going on.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, YouTubers, patrons, everybody watching this episode. Okay, so we are here back on our Street Fighter 1000 build, coming down to the nitty-gritty, the last little bits and pieces to complete this machine. We have Judd, our machinist here, that was oh so kind to fabricate us our intake ram air ducts, and he has them with him today. We're going to start by putting those in and make sure that we have a good fit all the way around. And then I think we're going to have to send those out to get them painted afterwards. But we're going to start with the ram air ducts, make sure they fit, and then we're going to move on to smaller and better things. I would say bigger, because they're not really any bigger, but they may not even be better. We're just going to get to work. So these are the two ram air ducts. There's one over here. They are now fully complete. The last couple rivets that hold the duct onto the boot that goes into the airbox have now been installed. You can have that one. And this one has a nice little relief pressed into it to make room for our wiring harness that comes out of the same hole here. And we're going to install these now. So these will go in through the frame, and then this ridge here goes onto the lip on the inside of the airbox. So that's what we're going to do now. All right, so our ram air ducts are in. They have a super tight fit on the inside of the airbox. We have our nice screening in the front of them, so nothing big makes it into the airbox. Even if they do, if you wanted to come take a look in the inside of the airbox, the ram air ducts feed into this section. This is where the air filter sits. So regardless of what comes in here, it's got to go through the filter before it comes into the actual engine. So if anything smaller than these holes makes it into the airbox, they're still not going to make it into the engine. So we did our finish assembly dry fit. Everything fits the way that it is supposed to. So the next step for us is we're going to remove these so we can have them painted. And then we're going to close the airbox up and get everything all buttoned up here so we can run this thing in a few minutes. So we're going to remove these now, button everything else up on the bike for the second to last time. The last time, once these ram air ducts are painted and they go in permanently, then there'll be no more disassembly, reassembly for our bike. So let's go ahead and pull these back out, get them prepped for paint, and then move on to finish assembling this thing. You guys ready? You ready to see what's in here? You can kind of see what it once said.
An S-Prod.
Does that make it better?
Yeah.
All right, let's see what's in this thing. It's a set of bar ends for our bike that we can't use. And we got some block-off plates that we already put on. And we got a spring puller, which actually might come in handy for this thing. We got a big fatty pipe wrapped in bubble. And one more box. Okay, so maybe you guys could tell that we opened this maybe once or twice. Maybe once or twice to take a peek at what's in here. I don't know what's heavier, the bubble wrap or the pipe.
Yeah.
Like, I'm serious. This thing. That's pretty amazing.
A titanium or stainless?
It is titanium. Man, does that thing look small in there? There's a whole lot of cardboard, not a lot of bubbles in there.
Good God.
That's not a muffler.
It looks like...
Yeah.
Okay, so in case you guys had any doubts that our engine was going to be loud, this is going to tell you that there is no doubt that this thing is going to be deafening. Deafening is a good word for it. This thing is going to be deafening. Well, we've already started this thing up with the open header on it, and really all we're doing is making it longer. So I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference. That is not a very big exhaust system. You know what would be really nice are all the springs. I'm only kidding. Gotcha! See? SC Projects. So this is the entire setup for our exhaust system. See, our pipe has a hole for an O2 sensor, and our bag did not have a plug in it, and we don't have an O2 sensor to put back in it, which we may have that came off of your MT when we put the O2 sensors back in. This is why we keep stuffs.
So time to install this thing?
I think so. I mean, this is it. This is the whole thing. I mean,
in that case, it sounds like a montage time.
2 springs and a clamp, and a bolt and stuff. You guys ready to put this thing on? So this is our slip-on SE Projects, and I'm not 100% positive, but I'm gonna have to guess and say that this is their race exhaust system. There is nothing streetable about it. There is no catalytic converter, there is no spark arrestor, there is no baffle. This thing is really just a really short glass pack. And what I mean by a glass pack is the outside edge of this can that is slightly bigger than the rest of this tube is filled with fiberglass packing. And that helps just a tiny little bit to deaden the raspy sound that comes out of this thing. So we got our ram air ducts completed. I trimmed back that one vacuum line that needed to be trimmed. Last couple things we need to do is we are going to swap out this gray hose for a black one. And then on the other side of the bike, there is the coolant reservoir tank that needs an overflow hose installed. We're gonna use the same hose from this on that. And then there's one more hose that comes off the bottom of the fuel tank that is an overflow drain. In case you overfill your tank up into the neck, there's a little tiny hole in that runs down through the tank, and there's an overflow drip line that comes out of it. So this is the hose that we got for to replace this one. The hose kit that we got didn't come with this hose. To buy this size hose, just this size hose from Samco, you have to buy a whole roll of it. And we only need a couple feet of it. So instead of trying to match the red from a different manufacturer, not being Samco, we went with a black hose so it kind of disappears here. So I'm gonna pull this hose off, I'm gonna lay it next to that one, I'm gonna cut it to size, and I'm gonna install it. And we'll see you in a couple minutes. All right, guys, so we've now got the coolant reservoir tube replaced, installed with a new silicone line. Also, if you want to check the other side, I have this hose prepped up. This is going to be our fuel tank drain line. And then right down here, back behind here, is the coolant reservoir tank, and this is the overflow line that I just installed. So we have all of our lines installed. The next step kind of would be to put the fuel tank on, but we have some other little stuff that we need to get rid of to get finished first. So I think we're going to start with the rear brake reservoir, and then we're going to put the brake line on. Then we're going to fill everything with fluids, and then we'll get back to the fuel tank. All right, so we got all of our hoses on. We got our ram air ducts fitted and complete. We have our air box back together. We have our brake line, rear brake line on, rear reservoir on, made a little bracket for that thing. We still need to fill the front and rear brake master cylinders and bleed the system there. And we need to put on our absolutely disgusting chain guard that we're gonna spend some time cleaning up here in a minute. After those few things happen, we get to put the gas tank back on and make noise again. I think we're just gonna go straight to the gas tank, you know, because we don't need brake fluid to make it run. Brake fluid's real caustic, and you know, we have all this brandy new stuff that I have to pour brake fluid around, so I'm gonna do this first, and then we're gonna move on to that shit. So we have all of our lines on. We just filled up all of the engine oil and coolant, minus our intake ducts, a couple of bolts for the gas tank, because we're probably gonna have to prop this back up to get back into the airbox again after the intakes are painted. Fluids are filled, hoses are on, this thing is ready to run. Exhaust is on, so it's not gonna sound like just a cut off header. Yeah, you may wanna roll that door open back there real quick too. That doesn't sound good. That sounds very bad. Nope, something's definitely wrong in there. Fuck me! It doesn't want to idle, it doesn't want to accept throttle, and it's knocky. I'm very not happy right now. We did fire this thing up last week before we filled everything with fluids to make sure that it wasn't doing exactly what it is doing right now. So we have some rattling going on in the engine and some of the running gear in the engine. I get to take a whole bunch of stuff off again. A whole bunch of stuff off. I went over this thing pretty adamantly as I was assembling it, and for there to be something wrong, I'm pretty upset. But that's what needs to be done. We need to go back in it again. We don't have any choice. It makes noises like that, the only place to go is inside and figure out what's making all the noise. So that's where we're at, stuck once again on this fucking nightmare machine that has been fighting me. Every bolt, every nut, every washer, the whole way together. Every wire, every hose. Unbelievable how difficult this thing has been. I'm gonna go someplace and cry now. You guys have fun, I'll see you later.